like to call this meeting to order, and I see we have a quorum tonight. Can we get an approval of this agenda, please?
Madam President, I move that we approve the agenda.
Is there a second? All in favor, a show of hands. Okay. We're going to start the evening out with an audit report.
Okay, thank you. Hey, I'm Teresa Deacle with the Examiner's Office. I'm here tonight. The state law requires us to present your audit report after it's been released to the public. This information is for informational purposes only. Again, I said we conducted our audit in accordance with applicable accounting requirements, which include generally accepted accounting principles, generally accepted auditing standards, government auditing standards, and uniform guidance. We issued an unmodified opinion on the board's financial statement as of September 30th, 2020. What this means is that the financials presented are presented fairly in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. We did note one matter which we reported in our audit report on Exhibit 17, and it's summarized as follows. At McKee Middle School, there were numerous instances noted where the purchase orders were not properly prepared and approved. For the fiscal year 2020, the board's major federal financial assistance program tested were the Title I program, special education program, COVID-19 elementary and secondary emergency relief fund, also known as ESSER. We issued an unmodified opinion on these programs as well, meaning there were no reportable findings. The superintendent and CSFO have prepared a corrective action plan, and it's included in our audit report as Exhibit 19. Our audit was released to the public on our website on October 22nd, 2021, and a copy of it can be downloaded at our website, www.examiners.alabama.gov. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. That was very short. We appreciate that.
That's what I was telling the superintendent. You guys have done a fantastic job turning around the past.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have an update from Volkert.
Thank you, Madam Chair, board members, Superintendent Moore. Thank you. If we can move to the next slide, please. Oh, okay. It's the same people. One more, please. The first two slides that were up were the 120-day look ahead that we have presented last month. We've got the assessment report dropped off at the printer yesterday. I'm expecting to have it back tomorrow, maybe Thursday on it, and I'll send it on from there. I wanted to go, I put a sheet on your desk in front of you, and I just wanted to go over a couple of things that have been in question, and that's the capacity. The method we used to get the capacity was using the Alabama teacher-student ratios that they recommend, and where K3 is 18 students per classroom and 4-5 is 26 students per classroom. We averaged the K5 classrooms, or the K5 count of classrooms at 20 per classroom to come up with the capacities. For the sixth grade students, the recommendation is 26 students per classroom, and 7 and 8 is 29 students per classroom. So we averaged the middle school classrooms at 28 per classroom. For the high school, the student count is 29, or the recommended student count is 29 per classroom. And our assessors actually went out and counted the physical standard classrooms at each school, did not count the labs or any other special smaller size or larger size classroom. At the magnet schools, where some of the labs are combined in a classroom, that space was counted as a classroom, a single classroom. And then for our demographer, on his methods of doing the projections, he took information from the city of Montgomery, checked the city council agendas and reviewed them for the past 3 years, took data from the Alabama State Data Center, as well as the Census Bureau. Had telephone conversations with the planning director to get information for housing developments, approvals and permit data, as well as referencing the master plan the city of Montgomery has done recently. Dr. Salmon did a study for us on another school system not too long ago, and his projections were very accurate. Next slide, please. Community forums, I think went very well. We've had them both at Lee and at Danley. We started receiving suggestions from the community. We're cataloging those, and we'll bring those to you. Some of the items that have made notes so far are adding pre-K, keeping pre-K at each K5, limiting the size of the K5 schools to 400 to 500 students. They want to make sure that amenities are equal across the district. Adding some athletic amenities, and gymnasiums at the elementary, and training facilities at the middle and high schools. They've also brought up a concern of if consolidations do occur, what will happen to the empty school building. Next slide, please. We took or received the statements of qualifications from the architects last week. We've started going through them to make sure that they've met the requirements of the RFP, and getting those to where we can present them to you, to where you can make a choice of which architects to use. We actually got 17 architects that responded, along with several geotech surveyors and commissioning agents. Again, we're in the process of reviewing the statements of qualification with the admin. We believe we can schedule some architect presentations for you to decide which ones you want to bring on, and from that pool, assign the contract or assign the projects to them once they've been decided on. Next slide. Our next short-term task are to start formulating various project options. We'll be using the information that we've gathered through the assessment and the community input, and also develop the budgets to go along with those projects. Next slide. We'd like to continue our work sessions to come up with the plan and be able to assign the professional service providers to the projects. Again, our goal is to have the designs underway January, February, and have the projects completed within a 48-month time frame. Are there any questions?
I'm just going to say I thought the town halls went very well. Very, very well received, I think.
I believe so too. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Cognia Link Spring license renewal, Dr. Debbie Cook.
Good afternoon. It's time for us to renew our contract with Cognia Link Spring. Just to remind you of what that entails, that is a professional development service that is completely online. So there are videos to watch, but not just the videos. The teachers then go back to their classroom, implement what they've learned, then go back to the online platform and report out what they found when they implemented it. There are coaches with Cognia who review what the teachers submit and then offer support where needed. In the last 10 months, our teachers have participated in almost 2,000 hours of professional development through Link Spring. Our top school was T.S. Morris, and just in the last 2 months, their teachers have viewed 153 hours of professional learning. Carver Elementary, their teachers viewed 113 hours, and Halcyon Elementary teachers viewed 101 hours. The top 2 topics that are being researched by our teachers are blended learning, which is to be expected with the atmosphere that we're in now, and unpacking the standards, which I'm very pleased to see that they are doing those things. And so this is just the contract up for its renewal. Are there any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Fenderson, some coaching supplements. Okay. Mr. Anderson, facilities update.
Good evening, Dr. Moore, President Wheel, members of the board. If you'll look at your spreadsheet on the different operations projects that are going on now, again, we're still waiting on material for Goodwin and Flowers to come in. It is a piece of the insulation, from what I understand. That is what's been delayed for so long, and I did a pre-roof today, and it's various products that are again being delayed with COVID and the supply chain issues. Before you tonight, you have the J.D. Danley contract for approval. This will pretty much kind of put J.D. in a good position with their envelope, with the HVAC that we've put there, and then also the roof on top. We'll be able to turn our attention with a capital plan, and Volker's putting forward to kind of go on the inside for finishes. And then Danley's roof is there. If you were in the town hall with us, that lunchroom and the back building, you saw the leaks in the lunchroom there at Danley. It's been long overdue to be replaced as well. The Brubaker Complex HVAC is wrapping up. They actually have a final this week on that project, so we'll get those we'll check the final punch list for those things and get those taken care of as quickly as possible with our contractor. The change order for the Dalrator roof, what our architect does with certain pieces of it, like the decking and things that go underneath there where you really can't look at it from an outside and estimate, where you have to peel it back and look at it, they take a unit price on those things like decking, that once they peel back and see what's there, you get that unit pricing, and then that's where this change order is coming from. When they peeled back to replace the part that was damaged in that area from rain or whatever from the storms, that was what they were replacing in that. So that's pretty typical with the roofs. One of the reasons why they don't put that in the initial contract, because if a roofing company is trying to estimate something like that, they're going to overestimate to cover themselves, because again, you don't know when you peel back the roof, you don't know what you're going to find when you get underneath that. So they're going to protect themselves. So I really like that the architect is protecting us in that, so that we only replace what is needed, and the unit pricing, which is included in the initial contract, covers those things. Of course, we just had the Volker facility plan. The Bellinger Hill roof over, we completed that. They're working on that now. That is something we had to do. It was like a waterfall in some of those rooms in there, literally, and I hated that we had to put that on there. But again, we did a roof over the existing roof that's there, so that we save a little bit of funding on that, because we are working on the consolidation project. As you see, you'll have that contract before you from the low bids on that. And then I spoke with the BTW with the contractors last week at our OAC meeting, our owners, architect, contractors meeting. They have set a tentative date there for December 1st. We have another OAC meeting that week on that day, and so it would be really good if we can kind of schedule that field trip out there to do that. And I'll let Dr. Moore work with you all to see on and scheduling that. But that way we don't disrupt their work, because when we go out there, they're going to stop certain things because they don't want steel flying around and different things, hazards going on. They did want me to encourage you. I'll have hard hats for that, but wear some good shoes, so that not high heels, so that when you go out there you don't stumble on anything when we do that, when we set that exact date. But pretty much either Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday that week are their best days. And if we could do the December 1st, that would work great for them. But I'll wait for a response on that, on the exact date, and we'll get you those times with it being in that afternoon and all. And then the central office consolidation, we have that low bid back. They're working on the contract for that consolidation project, and that should be before you next month at the December board meeting. Are there any questions?
Any questions? Okay, thank you. Mr. Mitchell, the Labster instructional software contract.
Good evening, Board Chair, Board members, Superintendent Moore. I want to let you know that Dr. Finison had his knee scoped today, so that's why he's not present. We want to present information tonight that considers helping students become proficient on the summative assessments in all year. The first one is receiving information for the approval of Labster Instructional Services License and its scientific learning of standards. questions.
Questions? Okay, thank you. Is that it tonight?
Then one more.
Okay.
We want to present receivers information for the approval of Renaissance Learning instructional software license contract. It's Freckle in Renaissance. Our teachers love it, but more so it provides standards-based opportunities for students to learn.
Any questions on that one? Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Dr. Moore, you want to give us a hey-ho on the athletic supplements?
Yes, thank you. Just a sort of a general overview. It's the information in your packet is about coaching supplements, and each one of those different particular athletic supplements you'll see listed. Also, you will see some additional guidelines that go along with the supplements that will be followed by those persons who receive the supplements. And so this is something that will be up for your approval, but it is for the extra duties that different coaches, et cetera, will have to be responsible for when it comes to athletics.
I have a question. We voted on the supplements a couple of months ago. So this report is just for the additional items? Is that what that is?
This is those high school, and some will be middle schools in addition to whatever we've already approved. Are these in addition to the others? Or, okay.
Okay, the information that we had from the last meeting, we had information on high schools. We had information on middle schools. And they listed the positions with the suggested or proposed supplement amounts that were voted in the affirmative. So I'm just trying to get an understanding. Just glancing, I do not see any changes in the supplemented amounts. Are we just voting on the additional information that's a part of Dr. Fenderson's report?
Mr. Watts, do you have any additional information?
I don't have the additional information at this time, Madam President. If it's possible that we can relax that for right now and then come back at the next meeting with additional information, if at all possible.
Okay.
Any
so
other?
If you would, Ms. Brown, send me your questions, and that way we can make sure we cover them when you
Okay,
when we
the
have
only
the next
question
meeting.
is, what are we voting on? That was my only question.
Okay. So the difference in what you had before and what you have now is what you're asking?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Watts, financial report.
Right. Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, Madam Superintendent. You should have before you the financial statement for the month of September. As we know, September 30th is the end of the fiscal year, so this report is basically for the end of fiscal year 2021. Of course, we know that our fiscal year began October 1st and ends September 30th. Contained in the financial report, we have the statement of financial data, which is just my discussion of our financial standings as of September of 2021. Also, there's snapshot analysis, which is a brief synopsis of MPS financial position as of September 30th, 2021, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in just a second. A monthly budget percentage. This is the 12th month of the fiscal year, so we are 100% of this fiscal year. The monthly and annual comparative statement of revenues and expenditures is mainly a compilation of our month-to-date and year-to-date revenues and expenditures. The statement of cash flow, that's our total cash received and cash expended as of September 30th, 2021. The pie chart of the cash flows, outflows is basically a graph showing those cash received and cash paid out. The combined statement, all fund types and account groups is basically the combined balance sheet, which pretty much states our financial position, and the combined statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance, which is more so an income statement. Madam President, we could turn the page to tab 2 in the financial statement. It's just to do a little brief synopsis of how we end the fiscal year 2021. We'll notice in the left-hand corner, actual, we had total revenues of about $237 million in our general fund, expenditures of about $209 million. We began the year with about $34 million, and we ended fiscal year 2021 with approximately $62.3 million in our general fund. We see our expenditures as a percent of budget was about 92.4%, so we did not expend as much. We see our salary expenditures for 2020 comparable to 2021, and we notice that those are down also. I will just say, though, as we enter 2022, fiscal year 2022, I do expect those expenditures to increase because now we're about to go into full face-to-face instruction without many delays is our hope. So I would expect that schools will continue to operate as normal. And of course, we see our local revenues. Our general fund balance analysis, we see that we started the year with $34.4 million. Again, ended the year with $62.4 million. We also see our monthly fund balance requirement for 2022 was about $19 million. So we did end fiscal year 2021 with 3 times our state required fund balance. I kind of want to say something about that too, though. Within that $62 million, about $4.2 million of that is earmarked for transportation. So I usually like to take that $4 million out. So that puts us at about $58 million, and about $1 million of that is E-rate funds. Those monies are set aside for other technology needs outside of the ESSER funds. So I'd like to take that out. So in all, from taking out about $5 million, I'm saying that's about $57 million. Of course, from the State Department standpoint, they do not consider all of that. They're saying our fund balance is $62 million, which is what it is. But I'd like to say to the board that of that $62 million, about $4 million of that is set aside for transportation, $1 million set aside from E-rate for technology. So I'm saying that we're looking at about a $57 million fund balance, general fund balance that our general fund basically have for fiscal year 2021. Madam President.
One more time, I just need to say thank you. You know, we spent less than we had coming in. We had more coming in than we expected. It's a bright future for MPS right now.
It really is. It really is, Madam President. I think that along with the ESSER funds, those ESSER funds are available up to 2024, which is the time that we're expecting those ad valorem tax dollars to kick in. So the timing of that was great.
Yep.
Well, I shouldn't say the COVID thing was great, but the timing of the financial situation was good for Montgomery Public Schools.
That indeed. Anybody have any questions? Thank you, Mr. Watts.
Thank you.
Ms. Gillis, we have a COVID emergency paid leave.
Okay. Madam President, members of the board, and Dr. Moore, in your packet, you should have a memo that says COVID emergency paid leave, one-time use. This is different from the one that you received last time because this one includes those retroactive days. The big difference is rather than going from October 1st to December 31st, it will go from July 1 to December 17th, and I'll explain to you why we chose those days. We looked at all employees in the district, and a normal contract for a 12-month person begins July 1. So we didn't want to start it after their contract. We wanted to start it at their contract, so we capture their entire year just like we would capture a 10-month person, a 9-month person, and so on and so forth. So if we go back retroactively to July 1st and end on December 17th, that captures this entire time that we discussed last time. And we looked at the calendar, and all employees will be finished on December 17th. So that captures that in complete time. We have the same general purposes, and we made sure that when we put this out there, pending board approval, of course, that the employees understood the reasons that they could get this and the documentation that's required. So it's bolded so they can actually see. We also made ourselves available in Human Resources to answer any emails and questions, and we did quite a few of those. But we think we satisfied all of those things. We also created a form for the nurses to make it easy if they needed to get, if they were a close contact at work, the nurse sent them home, or their supervisor, we created a brief form so they didn't have to go back. They could sign that form, the nurse could verify it and send it to Human Resources or upload it to Talent Ed so we would have that documentation. We tried to make it as simple as possible, but to be as diligent as possible to make sure that we were capturing what we needed to capture. The additional things that we added there was that the contract start dates, so they knew that if they were a 12-month employee, where they started, if they were a 10-month employee, where they started, and so on and so forth. We gave them a deadline to have it all done by November 5th. Payroll's intention is to try to get everyone caught up, except for people who are no longer working with us, and I'll explain that, by the beginning of the year, 2022, if possible. It just depends on the number that we have. So we cut it off on the 5th. We received a couple of emails Monday, but we've taken care of those as well. So we're looking at the documentation, providing that information with payroll. I actually left the HR directors working on that this afternoon. Additionally, we have a note down there that says that MPS reserves the right to verify all submitted documentation, and that's just for our protection, to make sure that we look at each individual piece, because we did get some interesting calls, but we've weeded all of those things out, and we think this fits the needs of our employees. It is a one-time use, so if they used it in September, they can't do it again in December. It's a one-time use. If you use one day and you don't want to use the other nine, that's fine, but you can't go back and pick up 9. So it's one-time use, and we think this fits our need, Madam President.
You heard what people said, what teachers and staff said, and what this board said. I don't have any questions. I just appreciate you going back and taking care of our employees. So, anybody have anything? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, redistricting consultants. Dr. Moore, did you want to take this one?
I'll just introduce it. There was some discussion about after the census report, the most recent one that states and school boards, House of Representatives, senators, etc., that you review your district in case you've had some population shifts and things like that. And so school boards are a part of that. So there was some discussion, just slightly, not a whole lot, about the school board entering into an arrangement where they would also look, members of the board would look at their particular districts and make some decisions. And so the discussion now centers around who will be used as a consultant group to help the school board review and make those decisions. And so I think now the board has to have some discussion about which way they want to go. I think there might be 2 possible consulting groups at this time. I'm sure there are more out there, but right now I think the discussion centers around 2. And so a decision has to be made by the board about which way they want to go with that.
Can I ask a question before you get started? So it's my understanding that we can have as many as 7 different maps drawn, because there are 7 different people on here that may see things differently. And the maps are brought before the board for approval. Is that correct? Okay, so,
I think that what happens is there have been population shifts. So there is an existing map from 10 years ago, which can be overlaid with where the population has actually shifted.
correct.
And then you can then work with it, because some district may gain a little or may lose a little, just depending on where the population has moved.
Correct, and I've been doing a little research since we had the meeting, and it appears that the change in population in Montgomery County puts us, if we put everything equal, at about 32,000 plus people per district, okay? So my question, I guess, or my need for clarity is, the person I spoke with worked with Mayberry 10 years ago to lay this map out, the existing map. And there were some concerns, but I guess the board at the time overcame the concerns. And I know that, Claire, I think you had an agreement that was, looked like it was drawn up on October the 14th, which is an odd date to me, but that information, I would like for the board to get full information on however many recommendations we have, and not rush to judgment on anything. I realize that we are in a crunch based on the information that was shared with us last month, the PowerPoint that was shared to us, and it looks like this process should have taken, we should have been working on this a while ago.
Well, the census information was later than that timeline.
Correct.
So it did put us backwards on that, but we
Correct.
are in a time crunch. We need to do something.
So, but we need to also do our due diligence in understanding what we're doing and who we're doing it with.
Dr. Coleman, have you got some information from the other group that was
Okay.
under consideration?
My concerns were very, very similar to Ms. Brown's. The fact that we are now being more serious about getting this done, and others have had opportunities to do research and speak with consultants. I'm so glad that we are reaching out. And I think I expressed that I didn't want to take a vote on a particular group to do the work, being that we all have acquaintances or experts in the field who can consult with us and get the information that we need. I'd rather vote on a map than the persons to do the work. So I'm very interested in proceeding, making sure that we get the information we need, making sure that all of our questions are answered. But I withdrew my interest in voting on a particular group because I'm interested in the map.
We have to get the maps from somewhere. And my understanding is ASU has all of that ready to, take advantage of.
Absolutely.
I think last week, Brenda, I asked, for
I can't
for
understand.
a memorandum of understanding from those who were interested in drawing the maps. And that's been over a week, and I would like to truly understand when the maps are drawn, the company that has the equipment and the machinery can draw the maps. When the maps are drawn, it is up to us to decide what goes on the maps. But in the short time that we have left, I feel we need to get someone in place to get the maps drawn. And we can always adjust those maps to meet the need. We can come together and make and through consensus, figure out what is best for each one of us to reach that 3,200 or whatever that number, 32,000, I'm sorry, whatever that number is. But we need to make sure that the company that's doing this, we're able to evaluate the scope and the process of what they're doing and how they're doing it. We have one memorandum of understanding, and I was hoping for the other company to have a memorandum of understanding so that we can actually look at the particulars and measure apples to apples so that we could see what our needs are and who will be able to complete that in a timely manner. With an organization, with the school system of this size, it is important that we know what is needed, what they're able to deliver. We need to know specifically what is done.
Thank you, and I'm assuming you might be misunderstanding where I was coming from. When I brought this to our attention, I made a recommendation of a group to work on the project. In the meantime, I learned that, as Ms. Brown brought out, we can each get the information we need and bring it to the board. So I withdrew my request to have my representative as our vendor because he wanted to serve us as a consultant, and I am still using that group to consult with me and others who would like to meet with that group as a consultant to give us information. He's not costing us anything. It is absolutely free, so there is nothing to vote on. And that's why, in writing, I requested to the group that we not even have that discussion, because I was no longer asking for that to be our vendor, but rather an advisor.
Okay, I misunderstood. I misunderstood how you...
The withdrawal?
Yes, I did. But do you have an objection to us contracting with Alabama State and you still using your source? I mean, don't we need a central place that we go to do that?
I'm sure that'll come up when we get ready to take the vote. This discussion is whether or not we are able and willing to come to consensus on the fact that each of us has the right and opportunity to consult with whomever we wish and bring those recommended maps to the table to be looked at, discussed, and voted on, I hope, within the next few weeks. I was hoping that our discussion tonight, and I apologize, I might need to look at what it actually says. Is it specifically the vendor or redistricting in general that we're, okay, the consultant, okay. So what I'd like for us to, talk about is the process, looking at the fact that, there are individuals, populations that are in maps, but we can talk about that after we vote on whether or not we like this particular vendor. So I'm not going to ask my questions at this point.
Okay.
Have a comment. What about the best of both worlds? If y'all came up with a map and then we used your consultant for all of us for him to come in here and let's get his opinion
Yeah.
And then it's a win-win situation for everybody. He's free. So I would think we would value his opinion, and we would get the both, it's a win-win for everybody.
And it's not just one person out there now willing to work with us and consult with us. So, you know,
that, you know, they be allowed, you know, after we, you know, get the maps, or we have the person with the memorandum of understanding stating that they will create, they will distribute, they will make the maps, that I am in agreement with getting information from whoever is out there that can help us to tweak that map and get it so that each one of us will have input on how these lines are drawn.
Totally
I think
agree.
that's what each of us has said, if I'm not misunderstanding.
Well, I think we can move forward with this, moving forward with ASU, and then collaborating with the person of your choice to come up with I think that works just fine.
Perfectly.
So may I add one thing or ask a question, maybe just make a statement? So I think it would be prudent if this body would give the map drawers some information about what you would like for them to consider as far as this map and how it looks prior to your voting on a map. Because they're going to go by what you think, with the 32,000 or whatever. Some schools, some board members have more folks than others, more schools than others. And so I think that kind of input, however you give it to that group or a group or whomever you're talking to, if you all could at some point make some consensus agreements about the kinds of things, the characteristics of the map, and then give it to the persons. And then as they draw their maps, they won't necessarily have to go back and redo the map, because after the fact, you might see some things that you want to be done differently.
The only concern that I have is entering into an MOU, there's a cost attached to that. And it goes by not only a deposit, but also an hourly charge. So I think that it would be financially sound for us to agree that on a certain date, whichever members of the board are consulting with those that are offering their time free to us, and have those maps drawn up, and possibly once we, look at the maps or have whatever discussion, then enter into a memorandum of understanding. Because if we enter into a memorandum of understanding now and start working, it's $50 an hour with a $1,000 deposit.
In the scheme of things, that's nothing for a professional service. And they top out, well, you get what you pay for sometimes. And all I'm saying is that this is a professional service that is done by every municipality, every county. They are paying someone to help them with these maps.
And I understand what you're saying. The only thing that I am expressing is to cut down on the number of hours. And my consultant particularly have worked with this group. Very knowledgeable person, former council person, have worked with both Republicans and Democrats to draw maps. This man knows what he's doing.
Well, you have somebody that's approached you, or you have approached them. I have no one who has approached me.
Okay, well,
and I need the help of somebody that I feel has that. I got no problem with this other group either. I would just like a central place that we can go to, look at where the maps are. I'd personally like to see if there's a school on the edge of a district, and one person has 12 schools in their district and another has 5, that we try to shift it where it's a little more even workload for us. And I think that's going to take all of us kind of working together to get that accomplished.
Madam President, if I'm not mistaken, wouldn't that be two different conversations? The schools that we represent, we can decide that we can start that discussion in January, the schools that we represent in our districts, because I'm District 3. The people who elected me to this seat attend school at Robert E. Lee, and I don't represent Robert E. Lee at this time. So I've already spoken with the superintendent about, possibly us having those conversations. What we want to talk about now are the voters. We are looking at where those lines are drawn for the people who choose us to come either back to these seats or who will choose the next person to take these seats. And in making those decisions, we need to know who those people are and where they live. And one of my biggest concerns, I said I wasn't going to bring it up, but we've gotten to that point now. Do you know if this particular vendor already knows where we're drawing out? Because 10 years ago, Pike Road was included in our district maps. Have you already spoken with your vendor to know whether or not or how Pike Road will play into this? Because the Pike Road School District has taken some of our prospective voters and how that plays into the numbers that we'll be working with.
I have not, because all I have done was the research to find out that they did this, and we kind of got to a little stall place. But I don't think we're stalled anymore. I think we are good to look at doing this. I think we're good to hopefully use who you want to use to help you with your particular lines. I think that makes sense.
If I may, and I heard everybody's point of view, but I want to add just a few things to this conversation. One being that it would have been, regardless of who does the professional service in, if we had had an opportunity to meet with them maybe one-on-one to get a feel for the different organizations. Two, the timeline is something else I wanted to address. I did some research on my own and found out because the census was given out in late August, it of course pushes everything back. So therefore, it's a rush, but it's not as big of a rush in getting the district maps drawn up. It just has to be done before the primary because it has to go through the board of registrars, and it also has to be publicized to the public for their input. And in addition to that, the people that deal with voting will have to send out new information about the new district lines. So as far as a timeline, that has to be taken into consideration. We're pressed, but we're not as pressed as we've stated. The other thing I wanted to say is, I know you mentioned, Claire, some other governmental entities used it. The city council has internal people that they use. Their GIS department draws their maps up. The county commission, I do know, uses ASU. And I checked with some county commissioners about their arrangement with them, but the $50 an hour is a little concerning to have that much time, that much to pay for the amount of time, because you're talking about 7 people who are going to see something 7 different ways. So I am, just for the sake of being fiscally conservative, leaning towards someone who will provide us the same service, similar service, doing similar work, having done this work in the past, providing that as an in-kind service to us. It's just, to me, fiscally responsible, and I think it will put some of us at ease. And just to add to that, just some, and meeting with these individuals would have helped prior to. There was something else I wanted to talk about. The person of contact when we draw, when the maps are drawn up, who will get we've not discussed who would even get the information to distribute to all the board members when the maps are agreed upon, whenever that takes place. So just as something to keep in mind, who would that point of contact person be for whoever does the maps for us when they disseminate the information out? We have a person that can make sure that everybody gets the same information. There was one other thing. I can't think of it right now. If I do, I'll quickly chime in, but it just came and went.
I have a question. I've listened to this $50 an hour and $1,000, and we've got problems over that, but we can pay a lawyer $475 an hour to help us come up with a plan for property taxes. $50 an hour, I'm sorry, when we're 62 million in the plus, I just, it's just coming, I don't get it.
Well, I didn't mention it was something that was brought up. So, Ms. Brown, would you like to? Oh, it was? Oh, okay. Well, it was not my question, so I only reiterated it. So, just to get back to the main topic, like I said, that's just being fiscally conservative. The ad valorem, to answer your question, was something different. It was a bigger project. So when you have bigger projects, you have bigger costs. That's just common sense. This project is small. It is cheap. $50 is relatively cheap. But and I just put it out there as a suggestion, because 7 people have to agree on this. If $50 an hour is something that everybody's okay with, fine. But if we can find some people that will just provide the service for free, that also works. So I just wanted to put my 2 cents in.
All right, and the only thing I want to say, and I've kind of held back on thinking about this, but in fairness we have Republicans and Democrats in this board, to have someone do this that is not affiliated nor politically, I would love for this to not be politically charged. I would like for this to be as transparent and as free of that, because we all know we've got a 32,000. That is correct, and we know the populations have shifted. We know that. I want it to be not politically charged. I want it to be across the board neutral.
Okay. If I may add one little thing, I'm not advocating for any particular group. That's up to the board. But I think at some point, I think all of you made good points about things that need to be considered as the maps are drawn, and so that whoever is drawing the map needs to look at demographics and any changes that have occurred, and I think they need that information as much as possible at the beginning of a process, no matter who it is, that they have that information from all 7 of you, and then as they draw the maps, that's taken into consideration. So I don't know how you would go about generating that kind of information as I think in many cases individually will be talking with someone, and then that person or group will have information about your things you want considered, but it also, if you're drawing a map for everybody, they would also have information about what everybody is thinking in the drawing of the maps.
Okay, I had 2 points. One of them I lost while I was trying to wait, but one is staring me here in the face. As we move forward, I think I've already been reminded that we are talking about only the consultant that you want to pay to do your final maps. I think the money is a significant issue, but the one thing I would like for us to look at as, if you do end up going with this recommendation, the item 1B, looking at the census blocks to meet the required 5% deviation in district size. I think the 5% is a bit big. The recommendation nationwide is a 1% deviation, recognizing also that 1% might be a little bit difficult to achieve. I just don't want us to, that word, meet the required. I don't think we should even be trying to get to a 5% deviation. We should be focused on a 1 to maybe 2% deviation, definitely making sure we go nowhere near the required, the court order. You know, when we do court orders, usually those are minimal expectations. And I'd like for us, you know, as we move forward, if this is where we're headed, to look at that 5% deviation in district size, as well as the finances, and I promise I'm done. Thank you.
We also need to keep in mind, just so the overall thing is that when they redo these maps based on the census, it probably has a lot to do with gerrymandering. I don't get that feel from you all, to be honest with you. I feel like you all are saying, I've got 15 and somebody else has 2 or 3, so let's give them some more. So I don't think that's a problem with the board as far as redrawing the maps would be concerned. I think it's just a matter of the characteristics and what you want to say to a person or a group that is actually going to help you draw up those maps. That there are some things that you will need to be ready to tell them. And so in addition to all the discussion that you start to think about, what is it that I want to tell the drawer of the maps so that they can take all those things into consideration.
Okay, any other discussion on that? Okay, we're going to move along to the superintendent's search proposals. And the question I would have at this moment would be, has everyone here had enough time to study the 4 proposals? I mean, yes.
I reviewed the proposal, but something that I think that we need to discuss before we even get to the proposal, and this is strictly coming out of Dr. Moore's contract. Dr. Moore has made it publicly known that she does not wish to move any further, you know, after June 1st, right? June 30th. And we've had that discussion, but according to her contract, either the board needs to put in writing to Dr. Moore before or by January 1st of the intention, or Dr. Moore needs to put in writing to the board, and the board accepts her, you know, her desire. I don't recall that being done, and also in the contract, if it's not done by that time, the contract automatically rolls over. And, you know, we do not need that to happen, not saying that we can tie Dr. Moore down to make her stay, but from a legal aspect and a contractual aspect, we need to do our due diligence and have things in proper, decent, and in order to move forward.
I don't think that's going to be a problem by January 1st.
I'll give it to you in writing.
Yep. Okay, so then I go back to my original question. Are we prepared tonight to discuss and vote on this? Or do you want to delay this for a week or so?
I'm not ready. I don't feel like, I mean, I don't know how everybody else feels. If everybody, I mean, I've read them, but not in enough to feel comfortable voting on them.
Okay, if in that case, what I would suggest is that we table this for a period not to exceed 2 weeks, and we'll have a called board meeting for discussion, a work session followed by a vote. Is that okay with everybody? Okay, all right. So with that, I will adjourn this meeting, and I will call our regular board meeting to order. Claudia, what day are you going out of town? Sunday?
No, well, actually, Friday.
Friday. And do you know when you'll be back?
If you have a meeting after.
Okay. All right. We still have a quorum here. And can we get an approval of this agenda?
I move approval of the revised agenda with, I think we said we are tabling item F, with item F removed from the consent agenda.
I second.
Okay. All in favor with a show of hands? Okay. All right. I do have some remarks tonight, because as you know, I like to start our meetings with some of the wonderful things happening in and around MPS. We have exciting news this week. First of all, McMillan International Academy was named 2021 National Blue Ribbon School, and that is worthy of an applause from all of us. It's especially important when there are only 5 schools in Alabama receive this distinction. So Principal Faith Gaucher and Librarian Elizabeth Mosley recently took a trip to Washington, D.C. to receive the award. And we hope we'll have a campus-based celebration soon, so look forward to that. There was more exciting news at Pentlala Elementary, where our own board member Cassandra Brown got to speak and help cut the ribbon for the school's new covered playground structure. This structure will provide shade and shelter for students as they take part in PE activities. It was built with the help of a $20,000 grant from Walmart, and Principal Angela Sampson said that said she had also secured an additional $9,000 from 9 Walmarts in the area. Also, Pentlala's elementary 3rd graders received books from their wish list from Southern Power. So we want to thank Southern Power and for being such a great partner, and Walmart for being an incredible partner. Okay, one more exciting thing has been happening this month, and we'll conclude at the end of this week. Montgomery Rotary Club, which I'm a member of, has made donations of dictionaries to all 3rd graders in Montgomery Public Schools. Montgomery Rotary Club has provided dictionaries for many years and has added an essay contest, which will culminate in the winner's class winning $250 plus a pizza party, and the winner will get a $50 check. And lastly, Brewtech Robotics Department is back in action after scoring a big win at the state's first in-person VEX Robotics tournament in almost 2 years. The tournament was held at the Alabama National Fair, and a team from Brewtech won the tournament's Excellence Award, the highest award given at VEX Robotics tournaments. So again, a round of applause for them. We're so proud of them. And now I will turn the podium over to Ms. Jade Jones.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam President, Dr. Moore, and board members. Tonight, we're excited to share a few employee recognitions with you. And up first, we have from Jefferson Davis High School, Mrs. Antidra Martin, who serves as an AP. And listen to the great things that her principal had to share about her. She's a proven leader. She helps with the check-in process at JD. In fact, she improved that check-in process. She spends times in the hallways encouraging students to arrive on time to class. She's dedicated in her planning time to help in with check-ins. She's a daily participant in the supervision of students as they arrive at school each morning. She uses instructional strategies to help improve student performance. She serves as a model teacher for classroom management. She serves as a teacher, a cheer coach, Madam President, a mentor, and an RTI facilitator. That is quite a bit, and we are just so proud of Ms. Martin. Good job. Let's give Mrs. Martin another round of applause and the students at JD. All righty, up next, for our classified employee, we're thrilled to introduce Mrs. Anissa Williams, who serves as a lead custodian at Halcyon Elementary. And here's what Principal Schmidt says about Mrs. Williams. First, she has been with MPS for over 20 years over at Halcyon. She works a full work day and stays on the go all day. Halcyon says, you know, when we need to keep a beeper on her so we know where she is at all times. Mrs. Williams does not mind doing anything that's asked of her, and she believes in the success of the students and staff at Halcyon. She keeps the building clean, sanitized, and again, doesn't mind sharing a witty word or two, and she's a proud grandmother. Mrs. Williams is a grandmother of a Halcyon student and has seen many students come through the doors. So let's give Mrs. Williams, hi there, a round of applause. 20 years? And I think Principal Schmidt is actually here tonight as well. Oh, there she is, please come up. Yeah, here you go, this is yours, you'll stand over there. And while they're taking their picture there, we do want to thank our partners over at Baptist Health for always supplying a $25 gift card to our employees of the month. So we do thank our partners, Baptist Health. Let's give our employees another round of applause. Thank you all. And as they make their seats, Madam President, I'll yield the floor back to you.
Okay, next up we have our public comments. Let me just give you a quick head ho on the public comments. Requests must be made in advance in writing to the superintendent's office by 4:30 p.m. on the Tuesday preceding the meeting date. Requests must have specified the nature of the business to be taken up with the board and the name of the person who will address the board to be added to the agenda. Communications must be respectful. Discussing specific student or employee matters will not be allowed. Individuals who have concerns that are inappropriate to solve in this venue are welcome to seek a problem-solving meeting with the superintendent. Immediate feedback by the board may not be provided. However, you may be contacted for follow-up by the superintendent or her designee. Public comments may not exceed 3 minutes. The board's chairman has full authority to terminate the remarks of any person whose comments contain personal attacks, exceed the time limit, or are otherwise inappropriate. A speaker may be considered disruptive who continues to speak when their allotted time has ended, when asked to stop speaking by the board chairman, or is otherwise inappropriate. If a person fails to comply when asked to terminate comments, he or she will be escorted to their seat, out of the auditorium, and or off of MPS property, depending on the level of disruption. And I don't think we're going to have disruption tonight, so. Our first speaker is Ms. Jean Charbonneau on 2022 magnet application dates.
Good evening, Madam President, Superintendent, and members of the board. I'm here in an unusual capacity because I'm here to actually thank you for something. Two things, actually. I've been asking since July, on behalf of a number of people, to have the magnet application dates published in advance and to be included in a revised calendar. And all things take a little bit of time and a little bit of persistence and a few phone calls and emails. but it went up on the website on 1 November. So those of us who are interested in promoting that and expanding the reach and making sure that people who are not aware of the magnet opportunities within MPS, this is a fabulous choice for many, many families, but you have to know about a choice to make a choice. And there's very, very little public publicity about this. I may be wrong. Jade and I have a very good relationship, and I'll talk to her about that, but I think maybe a press release that this is up 2 months before it's usually up. I think maybe a little bit of publicity in this arena might be good. It is on the MPS webpage, and we really appreciate that because we can direct people to it. I would like to suggest that it might also be valuable to put it on the individual web pages of the individual magnet schools, all of them, because when people are overseas, like a friend of mine that just moved back here, lived in Montgomery before, PCS, permanent change of station with the military, over in Germany for 8 years, coming back, looking at the website, couldn't get any information, but she didn't go to MPS and the sidebar. She went to the schools she was interested in to look at that website. So I think those kinds of things are probably pretty easy fixes that we can do, and I want to thank you for the responsiveness of Mr. Mitchell and Jade and members of the board that I've been in contact with for getting this done, and I would like to ask respectfully that this be included from here on out in perpetuity as part of the calendar consideration process. When the new calendar is being circulated for the 2022-23 school year, when spring break is being considered, and when teacher workdays are being considered, and holidays are being put in there, please include the magnet dates in the published calendar when it will be released after the review process in February, March, and April, and it's published before the end of the school year. We would very much like this to become in perpetuity. We know these dates in advance so that we can help our fellow citizens, those of us who truly believe in the opportunities already provided by MPS, that more and more people need to know about them, and these programs can be made available to lots and lots of qualified families and students who may simply not be aware of them. We are, because we're in the system, but you would be amazed how many people just don't know about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Ms. Margaret Brooks on the superintendent search.
Hi. As you know, I've been here since July at every meeting to discuss the change in the superintendent and the superintendent search. And now in November, I come before you again, still determined to see our school system demonstrate positive change in the foreseeable future. And I believe that among the most significant factors that will ensure that change is securing a superintendent that is a good match for our school system. According to the RFP for a qualified search firm consultant for superintendent of schools, the board desires to finalize the selection for the new superintendent by May 14th, 2022, just 6 months from now. However, considering the scope of work outlined in the RFP, we are behind the 8 ball in the process, which is a bit disconcerting. How will the board ensure that a firm will, quote, develop search criteria that incorporates the school district's goals and the leadership characteristics that the Board of Education and community consider requisite for success, quote? And how will you make certain that a firm can identify competent candidates in school districts with a similar achievement and community context, reflecting a familiarity with our students' needs? I believe there should be a clear communication as well as updates on the progress regarding the search for a new superintendent. You have shared your desire to select a new superintendent by May, but do you have a deadline for selecting a firm, which I believe you mentioned tonight that perhaps there has been a deadline for them being applied? If so, what is the deadline for selecting the firm? As indicated by the RFP, the process for selecting a new superintendent is taxing and time-consuming. The section regarding the identification and assessment of candidates alone could take months. Yet with May just 6 months away and the holidays approaching, there has been no indication of a real start. How many, if any, firms have responded to the RFP? Please contemplate transparency with the community throughout this process. Considering all that is outlined in the RFP, we are leaving in the hands of a firm and individuals yet to be selected some pretty substantial decisions regarding the needs of our students. The residents of Montgomery have endured much unrest regarding our public school system, and I believe that keeping them informed of the unfolding events of the search for a new superintendent may serve to bridge a gap of trust that has been absent in the communication between the board and the community. Thank you.
Next, we have Ms. Michelle Krosky, unfair treatment. Not here? Okay. And we had no citizens' comments tonight. So, Dr. Moore?
Thank you, Madam President. So we're down to the consent agenda. We're going to remove item F. And so other than item F, I'm going to recommend approval of the consent agenda.
Madam President, I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation and approve the consent agenda items A through E and G through J.
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor with a show of hands? Ms. Smith, did you? Okay. That was unanimous. Okay, Dr. Moore?
All right, individually considered for approval, I recommend approval of the personnel report, certified personnel.
Is there a motion?
Madam President, I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation for consideration of the personnel report, certified personnel.
I have a comment before we vote.
Excuse me?
I have a comment before we vote. Lines 24 and 25 of the certified personnel minutes need to be reviewed. It appears that there's issues with the dates. I'm sure that it's typographical.
I amend my motion with and add the correction of the dates.
Okay, yeah, you're right. There's not a 44th month.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So I amend my recommendation with the correction of the typographical errors in the dates.
Okay. Is there a second? Okay. All in favor with a show of hands? Okay, that's unanimous. Dr. Moore?
I recommend approval of the personnel report, classified personnel.
Is there a motion? Is there a second? Okay. Discussion? All in favor with a show of hands? Unanimous. Okay. Dr. Moore?
I recommend approval of the personnel report, certified teams.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I recommend approval of certified teams.
I second.
Okay. All in favor with a show of hands? And that's unanimous. Dr. Moore?
Okay, so I believe that the last one, D, is not something that we need to vote on because we don't have a recommendation for redistricting consultants. So we can omit that one.
So
Agreed?
I don't know what we're going to do.
Well, that would be, you would have somebody that you have, that you're going to use as a consultant. And so I think the general discussion was that we're going to meet before 2 weeks. Then you're going to get up with the characteristics of the different things you want, but there is no consultant to be recommended tonight. Is that agreed upon? Is that what I heard? Okay. So we're going to eliminate item D.
All right. So our next meeting is December the 14th, right here at Carver High School, and we are adjourned.